Today we'll be discussing Mesopotamia and the Euphrates River civilizations. In this we'll be going over the strands and content standards of Ohio, including History 6.1, Geography 6.3, 6.4, and 6.6, Government 6.10, Economics 6.15, and 6.16. This will cover all the content that has to deal with geographic location, government, religion, economic standards, agricultural, and social systems. So to begin, Mesopotamia had two different borders. The original border on the western side was Euphrates River, and on the eastern side, the Tigris River. This literally gave it its name, Mesopotamia, which means the place between two rivers. Mesopotamia included the Sumer, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian civilizations. All of the cultures shared many of the similarities with one another, including government, religion, economics, agricultural, and social structures. They also share some of the same science and agricultural advancement, including the widespread use of irrigation for their crops, and also rhizocell called cuneiform, which use triangles and shapes to get their point across, especially on clay tablets. This area is also referred to as the cradle of life because it dates all the way back to the origins of world history, going back to 300,000 BC. Now, to begin with, geographic location of this area, Euphrates River is, Mesopotamia was located in modern-day Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, Syria, and Turkey, which, in my handy-dandy little box, has Euphrates River on the front, Mesopotamia on the top, and I just pulled out my map. On this map, you'll see the Euphrates River and the Tigris River, and the area between, which would have been Mesopotamia. This is a modern-day map, so you don't see all the intricacies that you used to see back then, except for it does have historic sites that you can look up on here, which a lot of them are along the Euphrates River. Now up here was typically called the Fertile Crescent, actually came from the Mediterranean Sea all the way down to the Persian Gulf. And actually Mesopotamia was also separated into Upper Mesopotamia and Lower Mesopotamia, which you can find all on this handy-dandy map. Now, moving on from geographic location to government, the kings back then all wore a special robe. They had very nice robes made of very nice cloths. Mesopotamian cultures, all of them, all were monarchies, much like today's British monarchy. However, the monarchies of Mesopotamian cultures were believed to be descendants of the gods. This is very unlike Egyptians, where they actually said that they were gods themselves. Also, like I said, the kings wore robes, fine cloths, instead of crowns, probably because of the very hot temperatures that were located within that area. The Mesopotamian monarchies grew from from ruling a single state city to one ruler ruling many state cities, and then finally ruling one ruler over an entire region. The kings created laws through the decisions of legal presidents. These laws usually pertain to one city-state. Now, the most well-known of these is, of course, the Code of Hammurabi, which had 282 laws, which they all scrolled down on little tablets and stone and metal. Now, moving on from there, we're going to go to religion. Religions actually have these special structures called ziggurats. Ziggurats were these rectangular structures that had several different layers that only the priests would be allowed to go into, but people still come to and live around to worship. These were usually the center of the city-states. Now, within these, again, these were the places of worship. The ziggurat was built to be very specific to the region and their local religions. It was actually a polytheistic place of all of Mesopotamia because they worshipped several different gods, and different places would actually worship different gods, and maybe even a different set of gods. Not only would the people worship several gods, but they would actually worship different gods, again, depending on location. Going from religion, we're going to go into the economic systems, which was very different than what we see today. It went into a barter system where if you wanted a certain thing, you would trade it to get it. This is symbolized in my handy-dandy box by my wonderful little purse, my pouch. Inside this, one of the things that you wouldn't see a lot of is actually they would sell different types of grain. Farmers would take their grain to market and actually barter and trade for different things they wanted. It's actually, farmers were one of the richest people in Mesopotamia because they had the stuff that everybody wanted because it's food. Also, other things they borrowed us were jewelry, trinkets. I have some coins to show this because they're made out of gold, silver, and copper, which were all metals or highly traded back then to get different things. Moving from economic systems to agriculture. For this, in my handy-dandy box, I have, of course, a farmer and his cattle. Again, farmers were one of the richest people in Mesopotamia because they had everything everybody wanted because they had the stuff to survive. Euphrates River is one of the two rivers that helped create the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent extended from modern-day Turkey through Iraq and Syria and finally ending in Israel. This is what gave this area a lot of its farming capability. Farming was not only a job but a way of life. Farmers grew the food, but they also had the most sought-after items for trade. And the earliest crops were wheat, barley, various legumes, grapes, melons, dates, pistachios, and almonds. And not all of the land in this area was actually suitable for farming, so what they did in Mesopotamia and along the Euphrates River was actually go and build these huge canals and ditches to take the water from the rivers and put it where they want it. Or otherwise, the first forms of irrigation, large amounts of irrigation. Great ways to farm. Moving on from there, we're going to wrap up with some social structures. Now, social structures, they had scribes, and these scribes would take down social and economic status of people, what they traded, what they bartered for on these wonderful little clay tablets that they'd use for their ways of writing. Now, all Mesopotamian cultures base their society on a social hierarchy. At the top were the priests and the kings because they were the ones that are close to the gods. More likely, the priests were usually the highest because they were the ones that actually spoke for the gods to the people. Below the kings, you had the nobles, which were the people that had the most money and also the highest standing with the king. Below them, you had the scribes, people had to write all this wonderful stuff, and the soldiers, because they're the ones that protected everything. Below them, you had the farmers, crops, merchants, traders, and craftsmen because they were the people that were free and able to do all this work and able to help prosper their area, their city-state. And finally, at the bottom, we had slaves, which were all the people that were either in debt, imprisoned, or captured during wars or other uprisings. So, as you can see, many interesting things about the Mesopotamian culture and everything around the Euphrates River. Thank you for your time, and I hope you learned at least one thing. Have a great night.